Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Namaskar. My name is Dr. Reena Vaishnav, Assistant Professor in the Department of English at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. Today, in this session, mainly we are going to discuss about Elizabethan age. In last session, we have mainly discussed about what exactly is Elizabethan age. What is the historical background of the Elizabethan age, as well as we have discussed historical chronology of the Elizabethan age. But today, in this session, mainly we are going to discuss about major writers of the Elizabethan age and the literary works. Which major writers we are going to discuss? The first writer is George Gascoigne, Philip Sidney, Edmund Spenser and William Shakespeare. We will discuss about William Shakespeare in a very brief manner, but most of their biography, their main works, their theme of their works, that we are going to discuss in this session. Okay, so let's start our session. George Gascoigne, who is considered Elizabethan writer, right? We have discussed in our last session what exactly Elizabethan age, what are the historical movements happened in Elizabethan age, right? Historical movements, Black Death, why there is a conflict in religion and king, and what are the result we can see in the Elizabethan writers' works. Mainly we have also discussed why do we have to study history of English literature. Why? If we study history of English literature, we can have an idea about what exactly happened in a particular period, what kind of themes were there, and why these kinds of themes were there, what was the reason behind it, right? So this is the reason we have to study history of English literature. In last session, we have also discussed about 4 methods to study history of English literature. The first, biographical method, second, historical method, third one, it is about literary method, and fourth one is about linguistic method. Today, mainly we are going to discuss about, why I repeat it again, because today mainly we are going to discuss about biographical and historical method. Like on the screen, there is a slide on George Gascoigne, right? So through the works of George Gascoigne, we can identify how he is as a writer and what kind of writing he has written. So let me start each and a particular writer one by one. First, we are going to discuss George Gascoigne. After that, we are going to discuss about Thomas Sackville. After that, we are going to discuss about Philip Sidney, Edmund Spenser. Okay, so our first Elizabethan writer is George Gascoigne. George Gascoigne is considered mainly a pioneer of prose fiction. Which prose fiction he has written? The Adventure of Master F.J. The Adventure of Master F.J. Right? So, George Gascoigne is considered as a pioneer of English prose fiction, as well as he is a skilled poet. Another thing we have to focus about George Gascoigne, he has written one play which name is Suppose, right? This play Suppose mainly focus on how Italian Renaissance come to the English drama, right? So George Gascoigne mainly considered for 3 aspects. The first one, pioneer of English prose fiction. Second one, he is a very skilled poet as well. And the third, the work, or you can say a play, Supposes, is notable for being one of the first English play to use classical Italian comedy as its source, which I have also introduced in the very beginning. Like George Gascoigne is considered Italian Renaissance. He has taken Italian Renaissance to English drama, right? So this play, Suppose, is notable for being one of the first English plays to use its classical Italian comedy as its source and introducing elements of the Italian Renaissance to English drama. Now, another thing about George Gascoigne we have to discuss, that is, George Gascoigne is considered as a graveyard poet, or you can say churchyard poets. What exactly it is about? Or you can say churchyard poets. So these poets mainly write works on the theme of death. Right? These are the mainly a pre-romantic 18th century poets who mainly writes about death and the other themes regarding death, right? So when we are talking about George Gascoigne, these are the main thing that we have to consider in our mind, that he is a pioneer of a prose fiction. The work is The Adventure of Master F.J. Second thing, he is a very skilled poet. Third thing, his play Supposes, which brings Italian Renaissance to English drama. And fourth thing, George Gascoigne is considered as a churchyard poet. Graveyard poets, they mainly write about gloomy meditation to morality. Once again, I repeat it. What is the main theme of the churchyard poet and graveyard poet? The theme of these writers is gloomy meditation to morality. Okay? So, I hope this writer is clear, George Gascoigne. First, pioneer of English prose fiction, his work The Adventure of Master F.J., right, who is a skilled poet also. And the play Supposes is notable for being a classical Italian comedy as its source. And George Gascoigne is considered a graveyard poet, or you can say churchyard poet, who has considered gloomy meditation to morality. So, for the graveyard poets, or you can say for the churchyard poet, what is the main theme of these poets? Gloomy meditation to morality. Okay? Now, our next writer is Thomas Sackville. Now, whenever we see the name of the Thomas Sackville, directly one work comes in our mind, which is Gorboduc, right? You can say Gorboduc, or you can say Tragedies of Gorboduc, or you can say Ferex or Porrex, right? So, these are the three names of this work, right? Thomas Sackville has written one tragedy. He has worked as a co-author. This work, Gorboduc, Tragedies of Gorboduc, and Ferex or Porrex, right? These are the name of one tragedy, and this work has written by two writers. First one is Thomas Sackville and the second one is Thomas Norton. This work mainly divided into 5 acts, right? First 3 acts, it was written by Thomas Norton, right? So, the first 3 acts, it was written by Thomas Norton, and last 2 acts was written by Thomas Sackville, or you can say final 2 acts was written by Thomas Sackville. Okay, Gorboduc, tragedies of Gorboduc, Ferex Porrex. Mainly this tragedy is divided into 5 acts. First 3 acts, it was written by Thomas Norton, and last 2 acts, final acts, it was written by Thomas Sackville. The whole tragedy is mainly of 5 acts, right? Now, this tragedy is called verse drama, Senecan tragedy, right, and morality play. So, when we are talking about Thomas Sackville, the work Gorboduc is called verse drama. Why it is called verse drama? Why it is called Senecan tragedy? Why it is called a morality play? What are the main characteristics that which we can find in a Gorboduc that we considered it as a verse drama, as well as a Senecan tragedy, as well as a morality play? So, let me give you 3 characteristics about it. So, why it is called verse drama? So, the first thing, Gorboduc or Ferex Porrex is called verse drama because it is mainly considered with the seriousness of tragedy, right? Verse drama are mainly considered, mainly focus on seriousness of tragedy. So, that characteristics we can find it in a Gorboduc. So, that is why it is called a verse drama. Now, Senecan tragedy. We all know, like in a 1st century, there was one Roman philosopher whose name is Seneca. And this writer, this philosopher has written such kinds of a play. This kinds of a play is called Senecan tragedy. What is the main characteristics of this Senecan tragedy? So, this kind of a Senecan tragedy are mainly bloody, too much bloody, horror. There is a, you can say there is a whole environment of a horror, and mainly written to read, not to perform, right? So, these are the main characteristics of a Senecan tragedy. So, in 1st century, Roman writer Seneca, who has written bloody or thirsty tragedy, these kinds of characteristics we just find it in another writers. So, this kinds of a tragedy we can say Senecan tragedy. In 16th century, such kinds of a tragedy characteristics are followed in our English literature. Now, what is morality play? We have discussed about miracle play as well as morality play. So, mainly morality play, this kinds of a play mainly focus on features of allegorical stories. They mainly try to teach morals to the audience. So, right. So, after when we read Gorboduc story of a Gorboduc, right. So, this story indirect, there is a main atmosphere of horror, blood and thirstiness, right. But at the end of the story, we can learn some virtue, like what we have to follow as a principle in our life, what we don't have to do in our life, what kind of principles we have to follow to be a good human beings, right. Now, we have seen like Gorboduc it is a verse drama, it is a Senecan tragedy, it is a morality play. What exactly the story of Gorboduc? Do you know about it? Okay, in a simple sense, I just say Gorboduc is a king of Britain. Videna, let me draw one chart. Gorboduc, Videna, Ferrex and Porrex, right? This is a character chart. Whenever you, in our English literature, there are so many stories are there, right? Mainly all the stories are depend on the same theme like love and war, peace and all, right? So, whenever you want to remember the particular story, you have to focus on the chart of that character. So, Gorboduc is a king of Britain. His wife name is Videna. Gorboduc has mainly two sons, right? Gorboduc has mainly two sons, Ferrex and Porrex. Ferrex is the elder son and Porrex is a younger son, right? So, now what happened? Gorboduc, during his kingdom, he has divided his realm between two sons, Ferrex, elder son, and Porrex, younger son. But you can say by the destiny or bad luck, Porrex, who is a younger son, suddenly he killed elder son Ferrex. Now, the mother of the both of the child or mother of the both of the children, Ferrex and Porrex, Videna. Videna was, who is the mother of these two sons, who is deeply in love with the elder son. So, that is why what happened, she becomes very angry, and for this reason, to take revenge to her younger son, Videna killed Porrex. Now, Ferrex is killed, Porrex is also killed, right? So, now the whole realm of a king of Britain became terrified, and for so many years, like who will be the chronicle or who will be the next king of the particular province, this was the big question in front of all the people. So, now this is the main story of Gorboduc. How Gorboduc, Videna, Ferrex, Porrex and all the civil persons included in this story. So, in this way, these are the bloody and thirsty stories. So, we can consider it as a Senecan tragedy. So, Thomas Sackville, co-author of the first English tragedy, right? Thomas Sackville is a renowned co-author of the Gorboduc. His works were included in the influential anthology of Totus Miscellany. He is also considered as an architect of blank verse. Sackville is credited with being one of the early architects of the blank verse. Also, he is Thomas Sackville we can consider as he held various important positions like including Lord High Treasurer and was a member of Queen Elizabeth I Privy Council, right? So, whenever we are talking about Thomas Sackville, first we have to consider in our mind Gorboduc, the Senecan tragedy or verse drama or morality play. He is a co-author of it and he is an architect of blank verse and he was a member of Elizabeth I Privy Council. Our next writer is Sir Philip Sidney. When we are going to discuss about Sir Philip Sidney, some of the works directly comes in our mind. Arcadia, Astrophil and Stella, an apology for poetry, or you can say the defense of poesy, Nightingale. The first, Arcadia. So, Arcadia is called pastoral romance. What exactly pastoral romance? So, in which work there is a description of the shepherd's life, right? Life of a village, shepherds, right? Beautiful landscapes, music. So, such kinds of work is called pastoral, right? Pastoral romance, it means it is mainly included prose plus poetry. So, it is a Arcadia is a prose romance. It means it's a combination of prose as well as poetry. There are mainly 2 chapters, and pastoral, it means there is a descriptions of a village life, right? There are descriptions of a scenery, beautiful landscape, farm, shepherd's life and all. Now, another work is about collection of sonnets, Astrophil and Stella. So, it is mainly a series of a collection of sonnets, Astrophil and Stella. What is the main theme of Astrophil and Stella? Sorry, yes, this is the main theme of Astrophil and Stella. Love versus desire. So, let me give you in a simple line what exactly the theme of Astrophil and Stella. Astrophil and Stella, this is a collection of sonnets. The main theme of this work is love versus desire. Astrophil, who is deeply in love with the Stella. Now, day by day, this love becomes his desire. Now, he cannot able to complete his desire, and that is why such kinds of a platonic love now just turns into a downfall. So, this is the main theme of Astrophil and Stella. Now, another Sidney's critical essay, Attack on Contemporary Poetry. So, mainly this work is a response to attack on a contemporary poetry, and the last work is about Nightingale. It is a poem. There is one mythical character, Philomela, who is a daughter of King Attic, and she was molested by his brother-in-law, whose name is Teres. So, here is in this poem, in the very beginning of the poem, writer or poet has described the chastity of Philomela, right? What kind of the beautiful girl she is, and day by day, by the time she is molested by Teres. By the end of the poem, what happened to her? And at the end of this poem, now this mythical character turns into a nightingale. Mainly in this poem, nightingale symbolizes two things mainly, according to me. The first one is death and the second one is nature, right? So, this is the main story of the poem Nightingale, in which there is one mythical character, Philomela. The character, this mythical character turns into nightingale. I have already instructed that the nightingale word, right, here it symbolizes death as well as nature. So, when we talk about Philip Sidney, these are the things that we have to keep in our mind. The first one is Arcadia, which is a pastoral romance. It is divided into mainly 12 chapters. It is mainly a combination of prose and poetry. Another collection of sonnets, that is Astrophil and Stella. The main theme of this work is love versus desire. Astrophil's love for Stella, it becomes too obstinate, or it turns into a desire which now he cannot be able to complete. So, now their platonic love went to downfall, right? It comes downfall. Next work is Defense of Poesy. Sidney's critical essay, The Defense of Poesy, is a landmark piece in English literature, and mainly it is a response to attack on contemporary poetry. Nightingale, there is a story of a beautiful girl, Philomela, who is molested by terrorists. Right? So, this is about Philip Sidney. When we see Edmund Spenser, directly one work comes in our mind, and that is Faerie Queene. Faerie Queene is the longest epic. It is an allegorical poem, as well as this poem mainly divided into 6 parts, and where character represents virtues. What does it mean? It means this Faerie Queene, it is the longest epic as well as it is an allegorical poem, and this poem mainly divided into 6 parts, right? What happened in this epic, each and every part represents one story, right? Like first story, it is about Red Cross, right? So, this story Red Cross, after the end of the story, when you reach to the end of the part, you will learn something, right? So, the story of Red Cross represents the virtue of holiness. In the same way, second part, the story of Sir Gawain represents temperance. Part 3 of the book of Faerie Queene, Britomart. Britomart represents the virtue of chastity. Part 4, the legend of Campbell and Talmon. It represents the virtue of friendship. Part 5, Sir Artegall, mainly symbolizes the virtue of fairness. And the last part 6, Sir Calidore, representing the virtue of civility. How? Let me discuss about the one story. Which one we will discuss? Red Cross, we all know. Let me take Britomart. So, now in this story, part 3, there is a story of Britomart and Artegall. What is the exactly story? I just tell you within 1 or 2 minutes. So, Britomart is a very beautiful, young and strongest queen, right? Now, her father has made one magic mirror. When Britomart sees the Artegall, there is a one character, Artegall. When Britomart sees Artegall in this magic mirror, she falls in love with him directly. You can say love at first sight. Both of the character, Britomart and Artegall, they never once again they meet, even they never communicate with each other also, right? But now Britomart falls in love in such a deeply manner. Now she travels to find him again. She travels the whole world. She travels from pilgrimage to shrine, right? So, in this way, the whole journey is about how Britomart finds Artegall, right? So, this is the whole story of this part 3. And at the end of the story, Britomart, we are going to learn the virtue of chastity, or we can say Britomart represents at the end of the day or at the end of the part, Britomart represents the virtue of chastity. So, in this way, Edmund Spenser's work, epic Faerie Queene, there are mainly 6 parts. In 6 parts, there is a mainly particular one work, or you can say particular a story. In that story, there is a one main major character, like in part 1, there is a Red Cross, in part 2, Sir Gawain, in part 3, there is a major character Britomart, in part 4, Campbell and Talmon, in part 5, Sir Artegall, and in part 6, Calidore, right? Through this story, we can understand, or through this character, they represent different virtue to the readers. The virtue of holiness, temperance, chastity, friendship, fairness and civility. So, this is about Edmund Spenser. Now, when we see a Spenser, so Spenserian stanza. So, when we talk about Spenserian stanza, there are mainly 8 lines. In iambic pentameter, and 9th line, or you can say last line, okay, it is the Alexandrian line, in iambic hexameter. So, whenever we talk about iambic pentameter or we mainly talk about Spenserian stanza, so you just have to keep in mind like there are mainly 8 lines. First 8 lines are in iambic pentameter form and 9th line is in Alexandrian line, which is in iambic hexameter. And what is the pattern? AB, AB, BC, BC, C. This is the pattern of Spenserian stanza. So, these are the 8 lines are in iambic pentameter and this is the 9th line, Alexandrian line, which is in iambic hexameter. Okay. So, this is the pattern of Spenserian stanza. Now, another work for Philip Sidney is Spenser, it is Shepherd's Calendar. Spenser dedicated this work, Shepherd's Calendar, to Philip Sidney. The Shepherd's Calendar, in the same way, it is a pastoral poem and mainly in this poem, there are mainly 12 eclogues and each eclogues represent a month of the year. Means they divided in this work, Shepherd's Calendar divided into 12 parts, 12 eclogues and each eclogues represent month of the year. January, February, right? In the same way, Fairy Queen represents the virtue of our lives. In the same way, the Shepherd's Calendar 12 eclogue represents a month of the year. I have already made a slide of William Shakespeare, but we will discuss about William Shakespeare in our next session. Today we have discussed mainly about George Gascoigne, Philip Sidney, Edmund Spenser. These are enough for today. So, let me remind it again. So, let me conclude it again. Mainly today in this session we have discussed about majorly 4 writers, mainly Elizabethan writers. First George Gascoigne, second Philip Sidney, third Edmund Spenser and fourth Thomas Sackville. Which are the main points we have discussed? In George Gascoigne, first he is a pioneer of English prose fiction. The name of the work is The Adventure of Master F.J. Second, he is a skilled poet as well. Third thing, the play Suppose. This is the, you can say, through this play, George Gascoigne take Italian Renaissance to English drama. Our next writer is Thomas Sackville. When we see directly Thomas Sackville, one work comes in our mind, Gorboduc, Tragedies of Gorboduc, Ferex, Porrex. We have already discussed about the story of Gorboduc, right? Gorboduc is the king of Britain. He has 2 sons, Ferex, Porrex, his wife Videna. Porrex killed Ferex, Videna killed Porrex, right? So, this is the kind of a story of it is, and this work is considered as a verse drama, as a Senecan tragedy, as well as a morality play, right? Why morality play? Because it features allegorical stories to teach any virtue, right? So that is why it is called a morality play. Senecan tragedy, this because this story is also a bloody, or you can say thrusty, and there are the characteristics of horrorness, right? And it is a verse drama as well. We have also discussed about he is the architect of blank verse. Now, our next writer we have discussed mainly Philip Sidney. When we are discussing about Philip Sidney, mainly the first pastoral romance comes ever in mind, that is Arcadia. There are mainly 12 chapters. It is a mixture of prose and poets, right? Another collection of sonnets of Sir Philip Sidney, that is Astrophel and Stella. The main theme of this sonnets or this series of sonnets is love versus desire, how Astrophel's love turns into a desire, and this desire he is not able to complete it, and that it turns into the downfall, this platonic love downfall, right? So this is the main theme of the Astrophel and Stella. In apology of poetry or in defense of poesy, we have also mainly discussed how mainly Philip Sidney to respond to attack on contemporary poetry, right? And at the end of our session, we have also discussed about Edmund Spenser, mainly the one epic, or you can say allegorical poem, Fairy Queen, mainly divided into 6 parts. There is the mainly story of main 6 characters, and each characters or each story represents one virtue. We have also discussed about Spenserian stanza. Well, Spenserian stanza, there is a mainly 8 lines. 8 lines are in iambic pentameter, right? And 9th line, or you can say Alexandrine line, which is in iambic hexameter. What is the rhyme scheme of the Spenserian stanza? AB, AB, BC, BC, C. He has also written Shepherd's Calendar, and Edmund Spenser dedicated this work to. So, today in this session, mainly we have discussed major 4 writers, George Gascoigne, Thomas Sackville, Philip Sidney and Edmund Spenser, the major writers of Elizabethan age. In our next session, we are going to dive into a most prominent writer of the Elizabethan age. We can say Elizabethan age, or we can say Shakespearean age. We are going to discuss in detail about the writer Shakespeare in our next session. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you. Namaskar.